To have long-term success defensively, I think you have to have an understanding of how you want to teach your individuals at each position. And one of the things that I did in my opening presentation, I talked about what's base defense now. And it's big. But we talk about how we started teaching base defense and the fundamentals that we use. And no matter what offense we see, our fundamentals will hold up. It doesn't matter if we're playing triple option teams or zone read teams. It's all the same because our fundamentals hold up. Sometimes our alignment changes so we don't get outflanked and we don't give up something easy. But the key to our success on defense more than anything else is the way we coach the individual positions. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to start diving into our defensive line drill book. It's the first drill book we put together. And you know what? We've updated it probably at least 15 times in the last 25 years. So when we talk about our offensive tackles alignments, our defensive tackles alignments, you can see our 3 technique and you can see our 1 technique. All right? They are shade players, and we have a B and we have an A gap defender. 1 3 gap techniques, and they're in a position. Our defensive ends, we use stances that are slightly wider than a sprinter stance. We play our inside hand down. The stud aligns to the field, and the will aligns to the boundary. Both have to learn both a 5 and a 7 technique. We key the man on to the lead back. And the number one thing we teach our kids is get off and strike. If the target shows, strike the target, get your hips and gap. If the target disappears, bend. If you get a zone, sit on the zone. Here's our 5 technique, and here's our 7 technique. Here's what I want to talk to you about. So important. If you're going to play for us, we put a great emphasis on stopping the run. And we talk to our kids all the time, if you're going to play, what's the minimum you have to do other than give great effort and get lined up right? You have to be able to play your technique. And what is that technique? I'm going to get out of my stance, and if the guy comes to me, I'm going to take my hands and shoot my hands on 4/5 of his body. That means the target is shown. When the target shows, strike the target, get your hips in gap, and play your gap responsibility. When I get off the ball and I shoot my hands and the target disappears, it starts for my body to turn and allows me to bend. Target disappear, bend. Okay? Now, there's my stud. There's my stud in a 5 technique, and there's my will in a 7 technique. We use the same alignments. How do we play the zone block? This is really hard. Everybody gets all panicky, and I just laugh. So here's what happens. You're a 7 technique. And I've heard people tell me all the time, Pat, I'd run your defense, but I don't know how to teach the 7 technique. And I tell them we teach it just like we do everything else. What's the maximum minimum? If the target shows, strike the target. If the target disappears, bend. So here's my stud. He comes off. He's inside technique of the tight end. He shoots his hands. He strikes. He shoots his hands and he strikes. And he starts to get his hips in the gap. And as he gets his hips in the gap, the tackle starts to engage with his ass. Well, you know what? I'm going to grab that tight end and I'm going to sit down on that tackle like he's a bar stool. And I'm going to pull this guy down to me as this guy tries to block me so my backer's free to be a 9 technique player. If I shoot my hands at the tight end, and the tight end, okay, I get my hands on the tight end, I get my hips in the gap, and I can feel the tackle blocking me, and the tight end evades me before I sit down. I just step through, because when the tight end climbs, now the tackle's on my hip as the ball carrier's coming to me. I sit on the bar stool and I step through. If I come off the ball and the tight end disappears, I bend. It's the exact same thing. Target shows, strike the target, hips and gap. Target shows, strike the target, hips and gap. Target disappears, bend. We teach it the exact same way. Our defensive line progression, Get off the ball and strike. Get off the ball, use your hands and strike. If the target shows, strike the target, defeat the reach, get your hips and gap. If the target shows and it's a pass set, press it and start your pass rush. If the target disappears, bend. That's our progression. If you want to play defensive line, target shows, strike the target, get your hips and gap. Target disappears, bend. So we define what our techniques are, and we want to teach our kids the most specific things that are important. Stance, alignment, get off and strike and escape, and spark. We create a technique board. And for all these skills, we have different components. So if you're in the stance, these are the things we're going to teach. These are the drills we are going to use to teach it. And here's our coaching points and verbiage. When you create a defensive system, you want to have common verbiage. We do the same thing with alignment and get off, strike, get off and strike and escape, and spark. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you through all those drills and those coaching points. Now, the first thing is stance and alignment. You can't get off the ball if you're in a bad stance, okay? You can't help our defense if you're not aligned right. So here's what we do. Our stance fundamentals, okay? In this stance, we're slightly wider than stagger. It is an excellent stance. Our hand placement is perfect. Our angle of our body, as in the angle of the defensive lineman, is excellent in this stance. We really like this. His down hand's out in front of his head. He's got a downward angle. Now, the only thing is his hips are turned slightly. I wish his hips were up, and I wish his hips were up, okay? We have a slight angle of the body. It's a three-point stance. The inside hand is down. Our width is greater than a sprinter stance. We have a narrow base, and our hand is in front of our head. These two are a very good example. Get our tail higher than our head. Alignment. We use a one technique. We use the midline of our body to split the inside foot of the guard. A two technique, which we don't use very much, we're stripe on stripe. And a three technique, the midline of our body bisects the outside foot of the guard. We want to snug the ball, meaning we want to get up as close as we can to the ball. In the old days, we called it a credit card alignment. Our kids think that's kind of funny because they don't know what a credit card is anymore. Okay? Our first drill is stance and alignment. What happens is our scout team breaks their huddle. We align up with a perfect stance. We have a perfect vertical and horizontal alignment, and then we check the stances for width, hand placement, angle of the body, and credit card alignment. We check the horizontal alignment, and then we break. Here it is. We're teaching stance. We're teaching stance. If we want to make it better, you know what we do? We teach the drill, and then we trade the tight end. So what happens? We get in the drill, we get our 7 technique lined up to the field. We get a 3 technique here, we get a 1 technique here, we get a 5 technique here, and then we trade the tight end. Now the will has to become what? The 7 technique. We kick our line right. He's now the 3. He's now the 2, or the 1, and he's now the 5. So what do? We taught the defensive end how to handle tight end trade, and we taught our kids how to line up, and then how to handle trade, and how to line up when the tight end's on the other way, so we get 2 for 1, 3 for 1. And that works out really good. Get off drills. How do we get our kids off the ball? You know, a lot of times we use hoop drills. And we build hoops. We get the big tubes from Home Depot and we make them ourselves. Okay? And it's very important for our coach to use the ball on the rope. And he gives a hard cadence. And we want to try to draw the defensive line off sides. If we can get them off sides, oh, that's good. We want to get a good step to stagger, And on the movement of the ball, the lineman's going to turn, he's going to sprint and bend. And he's going to bend and he's going to finish past the cone. Every drill has a starting point and every drill has an end point. You want to get off the ball and you want to get off the ball and bend, and then sprint and finish. The next guy goes when the guy finishes. They're not big circles. Stance, you're teaching stance. You're teaching get off. You're teaching them how to bend and you're teaching them how to accelerate and get off the ball. It's so important. We like to do an alignment drill we call ball on a rope. You can use trash cans, you can use a strip, but what we're doing is hard cadence, get off, gather, and sprint. Okay? And what I'm going to tell you is you have to work on the hard cadence. If you don't work on it, you're going to get just absolutely blasted in your first game. And then as we do it, we teach them to redirect and work to get down the line on both sides. Get off on the target. This is where we start to get into the essential. We are going to get out and we are going to strike. We want to align with a perfect stance, perfect vertical and horizontal alignment. All right. And what happens is we have our offensive linemen. I stand behind them. I give them the signal. Okay. Here's the signal, our high tech. If I want them to block with a reach block to the technique, I go like this. If I want them to come off on an angle inside, I go like this. And if I want them to pass that, I go like this. So what we're doing is we're working on get off and strike. If he reaches them, I strike the target, I get my hips in my gap. If I get off and I shoot my hands and he starts to disappear, target disappears, I bend. And if I'm working with I get off the ball, my target sets, I strike the target, I feel the softness, I get the hi-hat, I start my pass rush move. Get off on the target. And all we're doing is working on reading the keys and getting our hand placement. The hand placement, the hand placement, the hand placement. Tennis ball drills. Okay, that was new to us this year, kind of like I got some film on it. What we're trying to do is get off and get off low. The partner holds the ball slightly higher than his shoulder width, and he lets it go. Okay, the player in the stance looks up for the movement. On the movement, he goes. His partner will release the ball, and you will explode out of your stance, and you try to catch the ball. Okay, and we use a tennis ball. So here's some tennis ball get-off drills. Okay, I like this. Okay, so here we go. This is at our camp last June. Here's a tennis ball. He drops it, and you try to get it on one bounce. It also makes you stay really low. Here we go. Tennis ball. Watch him. Here's the drop. Get off the ball. Yeah, he ain't getting off the ball very good. Watch this. He'll get a good get off. These stances are bad. They're a 4-point stance right now. We had to make that correction. New coach this year. Okay. And we took care of it. But sometimes if our kids, that's a great get off right here. That's a great get off right here. Excellent. Get off the ball. Get off the ball. There it is. Get it on the bounce. Get it on the bounce. Get off drills. We're going to talk about striking get-off drills where we put them together. Okay? Fellas, I think it's so important we learn to strike. A lot of times our kids won't use their hands. And it's so important we strike. So what we do is it's a one-on-one deal. Okay? Our defensive lineman is in a 6-point stance. They are stripe on stripe. On ball movement, the defensive tackle will snap and punch. And if you want to use a hand shield, go ahead. We want the hands inside, thumbs locked, elbows locked, hips back. We want hips back, and we want to strike. From a stance, we put get off in. And you can use a sled. I don't like a sled. I like hand shields and bodies. All right, the defensive tackles will demonstrate a perfect alignment. On the ball movement, the defensive tackle will use a perfect get-off technique. Foot to stagger, we'll strike them on 2. We'll have our hands inside, thumbs up, elbows locked, our hips back, and our eyes up. It is a tremendous drill because we're working to get off and strike. Get off the rock. You want to play on their side of the line of scrimmage. So here's a get-off drill versus bags. Okay, we got the movement. Good job. Let's get our thumbs inside more. Thumbs inside more. Here we go. We got a really good example here. A good strike. This little guy here, like a fire hydrant, was a really good player for us. Watch him get off and strike. Really good pad level. Really good pad level. Get off and strike. Get off and strike. We want to use our hands. The hands take you to your key. The hands take you to your key. Get off and strike. Let's see how, that's pretty good here. Not so good over here. All right, get off and strike. Not too bad. Not too bad. We want to get off and strike. We want to get off and strike. Another drill we like is get off and strike the trash cans. Okay, we use the big plastic tubs, and for this drill, we take them and we line them in their stance, and they explode out of their stance. The player should hit the can with both hands with the lead leg. Okay, when done correctly, the cans kind of slide back. When they tip over, okay, and topple, we didn't strike them right. All right, so here we go. We got some trash can drills. We're going to get off and strike. Get off and strike. Okay, we're a little high. Get off and strike. We're a little high. Pretty good. We want to get our hands in, and we're working on hand placement. First day of camp. See how Nayland does down here. Get off and strike. Still toppling over because we're a little too high. We're a little too high, but not too bad. Get off and strike. All right? Escape drills. The key to defense is get the ball on the ground. I don't care if the ball carrier's got it or not. Get the ball on the ground. And if you're getting blocked, it's okay. They're coached too. But it is a sin to stay blocked. You have to learn to escape, and you have to learn to get to the ball. One of the things I love in escape drills, we get in a post position, and we're in here on the defender. We're locked up on a hand shield. And what we want to do is we take a ball carrier and we let the ball carrier come down at us. We use a double whistle drill. We fit them on the first whistle. On the second whistle, the ball carrier comes down and angles. We tell our defensive lineman, if he's coming to your technique, as he breaks to your technique, you can go make an angle tackle. What we want to do is post the arm, open our toe, post, rip, and run, and make the tackle. All right? We want to post the arm, open the toe, rip off the block, and make the angle tackle. You can use a sled and you can get off. I think there's too much going on here. I don't like this drill. All right? But if you want to make this drill better, what happens when he goes inside your technique? When do you make the tackle then? Well, you make the tackle when he gets deeper and he enters heels depth so that the ball carrier can't jump cut you outside. And you would post, you'd be here, then you'd repost the other way, open your toe, and you would make a lateral tackle. So if you are making an angle tackle, the ball carrier has run to your technique, you could escape and make an angle tackle. If he's run opposite your technique, you're going to repost, open your toe, and make a lateral tackle. Now, spark drills. We use them when we rip across gaps. We lateral step and we kick the heel out. And we rip and we try to penetrate. A lot of times we build it into this alignment drill. Well, we will spark our kids opposite. What are we looking for? Perfect stance. Don't give away your movement. Don't give away your movement. Coach will utilize that occasionally. He will jerk the rope on the movement. You make your spark move, and you go opposite gap. And works really well. It works really well. A long time in our system, we used to really define the blocks. And then we would define the technique and we define the coaching points and the drills. And we used to spend a lot of time on all the different blocks. And then what we did is we really started to change. And we thought that if we just taught our kids to get off and strike, and if the target shows, strike the target. If the target disappears, bend. Okay? We thought if we taught them that, everything else would fit into place. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through our drills, and you tell me when you're listening if you think it works. Okay? So here's the one-on-one tackles and ends. Okay? We are working one-on-one from positions, and we're working reach versus veer. So basically, here's what happens. All right? Right here, this guy will block either reach or veer. Well, that's easy to identify. We're working our technique. This is perfect. This is my favorite drill. 3-on-2 box of hell. Now we call it competition period. We put 2 cones here, you can't escape. We're going to give them 2 schemes, either zone scheme or trap scheme. So here we are running zone scheme. We get off and we strike. We shoot our hands, he's got this gap. We get off, we strike, we got this gap. What does that mean? Our defensive line, that's the one technique is an A-gap player. He's got to keep his color of his uniform in the A-gap. Our B-gap player has to keep the color of his uniform in the B-gap. If they get reached, the structure of our defense is no longer good. Now we come down here. Our tackle gets the veer block, okay? His target disappears. He's going to bend and attack the trap. But you know what? Over here, okay, the guard pulls. Well, what happens when the guard pulls? When the guard pulls, he disappears. He should bend too. And as he bends, he'll collide in the back block. And if the back block is high, he'll cross face it. And if it's, low, he'll cross face. If it's high, he'll backdoor the play. It fits. Target shows, strike the target, get your hips and gap. Target disappears, bend. We come over here. External challenge period. Okay. On one side, we have veer block, and one side, we have outside zone. We get off and we strike. We try to gobble up too. We strike the tight end with our hands. We get our hips in our gap. Our B gap player will strike and keep his hips in the gap, and we got the B and the C gap covered. Okay. Over here, we're working a combination block. We get off and we strike. We start to get our hips and gaps. We sit down on that. Our veer tackle comes inside, and our will turn and bend. Target shows, strike the target, get your hips in the gap. Target disappears, bend. Now we arc block the tight end. We bring the tackle down and we kick out the stud. That's hard. Maybe it's a double team and they're running veer, but you know what? My target disappears, I bend. I'm perfect. I don't have to teach my kids 1,000 different block recognitions. Okay? Over here, they run ISO. I got an A-gap player. I got a C-gap player. We build a wall. We strike. We play our gaps. We let our backer play the B. It's outstanding. And then we put it all together in 6-on-4 and 9-on-7. Now, what I'm going to do in all our drill books is I'm going to take you through the drill books. But the one thing I'm going to do is I'm not going to talk about tackling except at a segment at the end. Each drill book that you will have access to has tackling by position, but also has the team tackling manual in it. I will cover that all in one section in a different time. Thank you very much.